What turns a movie production into total chaos? Stars walking off, directors getting fired, stunts going wrong, and somehow these films didn't fall apart. So how did this much carnage still make it onto the big screen? Let's find out. These are 10 movie productions that went peak numbers. Broken Arrow wasn't John Woo's first Hollywood film, but it threw him into a bigger studio machine. This time, he had stolen nuclear weapons, a rogue pilot, and a Fox action film that kept getting rougher as he went on. A stunt double fell off the back of a Humvee while holding onto a chain and got dragged behind it. Then, the train work raised the stakes even more. Howie Long was yanked through a wall with a 300-pound ratchet pull and ended up with wood in his nose. Then his stunt double carried the shot on, falling 200 feet from a moving train off a bridge using a safety rig to stop him from hitting the ground. From there, the shoot turned into a rough edit, with more violence, more character, and a darker ending where Hale died. Fox didn't want that version. Test screenings went bad, so the ending got changed and Woo's slower, bloodier cut got trimmed back. So the movie still reached cinemas as a big blockbuster hit for Fox, just not the original version Woo had made. Exit Wounds was meant to drag Steven Seagal back into proper mainstream action, and for a minute it looked like it did. Then the shoot turned horrible. While filming in Hamilton, stunt performer Chris Lamon was badly injured in a stunt and died 6 days later from a skull fracture. Another stuntman involved in the same sequence suffered a concussion. Then, Seagal started clashing over the action. For one major fight, he rejected the rehearsed choreography, argued with the crew, and then walked off set. DMX had his own stories as well. He said Seagal dislocated his shoulder while they were rehearsing a scene, while Seagal also said he injured his knee during a car jump and broke his leg doing wire work.
Not many men know what their life's worth.
Payback looked like a straight Mel Gibson film, a nasty revenge thriller about a thief wanting his money back after being betrayed and left for dead. Brian Helgeland wrote it, Gibson backed it, and Helgeland directed it. Then, filming ended, and the real fight started. Gibson and the studio wanted a different ending, but Helgeland didn't. So he was fired before the release, just 3 days after winning an Oscar for LA Confidential. With Helgeland gone, Terry Hayes came in for the rewrites. Around 30% of the movie was reshot. The opening was changed, the final act was rebuilt, and Porter got a voiceover to soften him up. Chris Christopherson was also brought in as Bronson, and somehow that version still made around $161 million worldwide.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is the hard target. You miss me?
Hard Target brought John Woo into Hollywood for the first time. The story had New Orleans turned into a hunting ground with homeless men being chased for sport by rich scumbags. Universal wanted a Van Damme action flick. Woo gave them gunfights, slow motion, flying doves, bodies dropping everywhere, and all the mad Hong Kong flavor that made his name. Then the violence became an issue. Universal pushed to soften the action and cut down the body count, which was a bit awkward when the whole movie was about human hunting. Then a motorcycle sequence went wrong. Van Damme lost control on a sharp turn and both he and Yancey Butler ended up in hospital. Then Van Damme commissioned his own cut, pushing for more screen time and more close-ups of Chance. By the time Hard Target reached cinemas, around 20 cuts had been made. Tango and Cash look like easy money. Two rival cops framed by a crime boss forced to team up and built around Stallone and Kurt Russell. But the film pulled in two different directions almost straight away. The original director, Andrei Konchalovsky, wanted it grittier and more serious. Producer John Peters wanted it closer to Lethal Weapon. That clash got so bad that they stopped speaking. and Warner Brothers fired Konchalovsky halfway through filming. Then the production brought in Albert Magnoli. That actually pushed more control towards Sylvester Stallone. He had already fired the original cinematographer Barry Sonnenfeld after a week, then kept shaping the script and making major creative calls with Magnoli. The shoot also had its own close calls. An SUV fire trapped Stallone and Russell in a dangerous cross-draft, and Stallone got close enough to cinch his mullet.
I lost my license permanently when I went to prison.
Bet you missed that life, don't you?
Black Dog was meant to be a straight road action film. Big trucks, bad men, and Patrick Swayze trying to stay alive long enough to get home. Except it didn't even start with Swayze. Kevin Sorbo was originally the lead, but a few weeks into filming he dropped out because of serious health trouble. So the production had to stop and find a new star, and that's when Swayze came in. During the first month, a car smashed through a police roadblock and slammed into the process truck being used for filming. Crew members were sent flying, several people were injured, and the first unit shut down for at least a month. The stunt work didn't behave itself either. In one high-speed sequence, 2 stuntmen ended up upside down in a ditch after a stunt car crashed. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the production was already collecting problems like they were parking tickets. Then, an explosion went off underneath a big rig just before a safety meeting, and it injured 3 crew members.
In December 1994, the forces of freedom will face a power-mad dictator in a struggle for the fate of the world.
Street Fighter should have been an easy sell. Huge video game, big characters, Jean-Claude Van Damme at his commercial peak, and a studio rushing to get the film out while the brand was still red hot. But once the shoot moved to Bangkok, the whole thing started falling apart. Raul Julia arrived seriously ill, so his scenes were pushed back, which left the rest of the cast carrying the film through the early shoot with barely enough fight training. Byron Mann said they only realized midway through filming that each character was meant to have a different fighting style. A temple explosion also went too far and destroyed nearly $250,000 worth of scaffolding. By the end of the Bangkok shoot, they were 6 days behind, so Stephen E. D'Souza started cutting pages from the script just to catch up. Then Van Damme made the mess even worse. He later admitted he was burning through around $10,000 worth of cocaine a week, while D'Souza said he was so out of his mind he was missing call times, disappearing for gym sessions, and once claimed he couldn't come to set because he had to pump his muscles. What would have made Terminator 3 awesome? Bring back Arnold, bring back Cameron, carry on after T2, and let the machine print the money. But that didn't actually happen. What actually did, the film got dragged into a rights mess before it could actually be made. Kuroko had the sequel rights, but then it collapsed. So Fox tried to move in, and Cameron was interested in making the sequel. But Andrew Wagner and Mario Casar went after the rights themselves. When Cameron found out, he got pissed off and walked away. So the third Terminator film started losing its shape before cameras even rolled. Then Arnold didn't want to do it without Cameron until Cameron told him he could take the job. The scripts didn't help either. One version had a female Terminator who could turn invisible and read minds, and there was even talk about stripping out the time travel. Then the casting took a hit. Edward Furlong was meant to return as John Connor, but his substance abuse led to a sobriety clause. When he broke it, he was fired.
Say hello to my little friend!
Scarface started going pear-shaped before cameras even started. The production planned to shoot in Miami, but that became a problem straight away. Parts of the Cuban-American community objected to the plot and hated the link between Cuban refugees, drugs, and crime. City Commissioner Demetrio Perez Jr. pushed back hard. Then the threats started. Pacino's private number was reportedly obtained, and he was warned there'll be problems if the film went ahead. so Scarface pulled out of Miami before the shoot even settled. Moving the production didn't calm things down. The helicopter scene where we see the body being dropped out had to be done twice, and the stunt performer later said he could have been killed if the rig failed. Then Tony's mansion set caught fire before the final sequence was shot. And while all of that was happening, Oliver Stone wasn't happy. He felt the film was moving away from his grounded vision and clashed with De Palma over dailies and ended up being banned from the set. Then Pacino got badly hurt during the climax. He grabbed the barrel of the gun, burned his hand, and went to hospital.
Power to be masters of the universe.
Masters of the Universe was supposed to launch a huge fantasy franchise for canon. The early scripts aimed much bigger, with more Eternia, more mythology, and a proper space opera madness. But Mattel wanted the brand protected. That meant no version of He-Man that could bruise the toy's image. So the film started shrinking. Orko, Battle-Cat, She-Ra, and Stratos were all cut out. The bigger Eternia adventure was pulled back, and a huge chunk of the story ended up on Earth. Then Canon's money problems caught up with the production. By the time they reached the ending, the huge fantasy showdown had been reduced to Lundgren and Langella fighting in a dark room. So this wasn't the giant franchise Canon had in mind, but years later, Masters of the Universe still found its crowd. And there you have it, 10 movie productions that went completely Pete Tong. Some became hits, some became cult favorites, and somehow a few are still better remembered for the mess instead of the plan. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.